Incident at Nutty Putty Cave. This man was trapped for 27 hours inside a crevice just 10 inches wide, stuck upside down in one of the most treacherous caves on the planet, Nutty Putty Cave. More than 130 rescuers fought to save him, but the final decision by authorities shocked the entire country. What they did to him, no one ever expected. It was November 24th, 2009, when John Edward Jones, a 26-year-old father, decided to explore the cave with his brother, reliving the adventures they used to have as kids. Nutty Putty Cave, located in Utah, was known for its narrow, deceptive tunnels and dead-end passages. A true stone labyrinth, with 2,100 feet of mapped passages and around 140 feet of depth, the kind of place where a single mistake could cost a life. That day, with his brother by his side, John took the lead, believing it would be a quick visit, just a nostalgic afternoon, but he had no idea what was coming. Crawling slowly through the cave's damp, dark, cold passageways, John reached a fork. Faced with two tunnels, he chose the smaller one, thinking it might lead to a new chamber. It didn't. With every inch forward, the space around him shrank. When he tried to back up, he realized he was stuck, and in a desperate attempt to escape, he forced himself into another crevice, even narrower, only 10 inches wide. That's where John became trapped, upside down, his body wedged in at a deadly angle, unable to move forward or back. Even in that terrifying and claustrophobic position, he managed to call out for his brother, who immediately rushed to the surface for help. Rescue teams arrived quickly, and soon over 130 people were involved in the desperate attempt to save John. They found a narrow opening where they could reach and talk to him. One of the rescuers even managed to hold his hand. He told John he wasn't alone, that they'd do everything in their power to get him out. John, in turn, admitted he didn't want to die, that he loved his wife, that he wanted to go home and watch his daughter grow up. Using ropes, pulleys, and every available resource, they tried to pull him free. They tied his legs and built a system to leverage his body out. But in the most critical moment, the ropes snapped, and John was pushed even deeper into the crevice. That was the beginning of the end. Shortly after, rescuers lost contact with him. John stopped responding, and his heartbeat faded. Stuck upside down at a 70-degree angle, his organs began to fail due to internal pressure caused by gravity. Lungs, heart, circulation, everything slowly shutting down. John began to suffer from something called suspension syndrome, a condition where blood pools in the lower body, making it nearly impossible for the heart to pump effectively. The position didn't just prevent him from breathing properly. It was crushing him from the inside. He held on for hours, but his body eventually gave out. When rescuers realized John was no longer responding, they rushed to speed up the rescue. But the situation was critical. The crevice was so narrow, so deep, and so poorly positioned that any sudden movement could put the rescuers themselves in danger. The hours passed. So did hope. By the end of the next day, doctors confirmed what no one wanted to hear. John had died, trapped, alone, in the dark. The rescue team tried everything to recover the body, but the cave's structure made it nearly impossible. It became clear that removing him would require demolishing part of Nutty Putty Cave itself, which would risk more lives. And so, the most painful decision was made. John Edward Jones's body would remain there. In agreement with authorities, cave experts, and his family, the entrance to the cave was sealed permanently with concrete, turning that place into John's final resting place. Nutty Putty Cave remains closed to this day, with warning signs and tributes left behind by visitors and loved ones. Incident at Plura Cave. February 2014. The temperature in northern Norway was below freezing. The lakes were covered in ice, and the wind cut across the face like a blade. Still, 5 experienced divers from Finland were preparing for a mission that, to many, seemed impossible: to fully traverse Plura Cave, one of the most treacherous submerged cave systems in Europe. The team was made up of Patrik Grönqvist, Vesa Rantanen, Kai Kenkänen, Jari Uusitalo, and Jari Huotarinen. All of them were trained, experienced, and highly equipped. Each carried 7 compressed air cylinders, thermal diving suits, and used guidelines, a kind of nylon thread fixed to the cave to ensure the return path. The plan was to cross 2.3 kilometers of Plura Cave to the opposite side, at the Stein-Nugelflaget system, navigating through narrow passages, deep chambers, and dangerous curves, all underwater, in total darkness. For safety reasons, they split into 2 groups. Patrik Grönqvist and Jari Huotarinen entered first, and about an hour later, the other 3 divers followed. They entered the water on February 6, 2014, around 1 p.m. The first part of the dive went as expected. They were well prepared, moving in coordinated rhythm and respecting all the rules of technical cave diving. Plura Cave, though dangerous, was familiar to them. But the final stretch held a silent trap, an area known for extremely narrow passages, tight angles, and sharp rocks that could trap a diver if equipment was misaligned. That's where the tragedy began. In the last section of the crossing, Jari Huotarinen began navigating one of the final narrow fissures. It was a sharp elbow-shaped curve with reduced height and a real risk of entrapment. Something went wrong. Patrick Grönqvist, experienced and ahead, noticed Jari Huotarinen was no longer behind him. Realizing something was wrong, he turned back to help. The passage was so tight that the water flow created counter-pressure, making it nearly impossible to retreat. The cylinders on their backs began hitting the walls, and mobility was lost by the second. Jari Huotarinen started swallowing water and slowly lost consciousness. Knowing he couldn't help and realizing he too was in danger, Patrick Grönqvist chose to move forward, completing the crossing, a decision that proved vital to his survival. About an hour after the first group entered, Vesa Rantanen, Jari Uusitalo, and Kai Kankinen entered the water. Vesa, the third diver, came across Jari Huotarinen and also had to make a choice: turn back or complete the crossing. He passed by his friend and finished the route. Jari Uusitalo was right behind. Upon seeing the situation, he panicked, became disoriented, and also ended up dying. The fifth and final diver, upon finding Jari Uusitalo's body, turned back and did not complete the traverse, returning to the starting point. 2 divers completed the journey, and the 5th diver returned to the entry. After a period of recovery, Kai Kankinen drove to where they were staying. The group contacted emergency services, and the local police were notified. Police divers entered the cave and concluded that it would be impossible to recover the bodies without risking more lives due to pressure, temperature, and extreme complexity. They returned to the surface, and it was decided that the cave would be closed, with no possibility of retrieving the bodies. Kai Kankinen and Vesa Rantanen, unwilling to leave their friends behind, planned and executed the rescue on their own, without government authorization. 2 months and 20 days after the incident, they re-entered Plura Cave, determined to bring their friends home. Despite the danger, every move was calculated to the millimeter. After more than 10 hours of diving, they successfully brought both bodies back to the surface. Jari Uusitalo and Jari Huotarinen were buried with national mourning. The international media reported the event as an act of extreme courage, but the divers themselves rejected the label of heroes. Kai Kankinen said in an interview, "I didn't go there for glory. I went there out of respect. They were our brothers, and you don't leave a brother behind." A story of courage, of loyalty, and of 2 friends who went back into hell to bring the other 2 home. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel. The next story is already being unearthed, and it begins where this one ends. To be continued.